But first, former Congressman Beto O'Rourke's presidential campaign says it has raised a record-breaking $6.1 million in the first 24 hours of him announcing his 2020 bid. The campaign says it received online donations from every state and territory in the U.S. and that it did not receive any money from PACs, corporations, or special interest groups. The total puts O'Rourke at the top of the early fundraising board amongst his fellow Democratic candidates, topping Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who raised almost $6 million in the first 24 hours of his campaign announcements. So fundraising on a certain level, Joe, instead of taking it from those special interests.
No, that's big. I mean, to out-fundraise Bernie Sanders, that's huge.
That's huge.
He now has enough money where he
Here
can
it comes.
individually write apology notes to everybody for having a self-deprecating joke.
He's popular.
No, I know.
The kids love him.
I know, they love him. And now he can apologize to all the kids for actually daring to have a self-deprecating joke that made fun of him and elevated his wife as a great mom. Because I know that in today's Democratic Party, that is truly offensive, that somebody would commit that sin.
Okay, but look at these numbers. These numbers show that he has traction.
He does. Now, Bob Costa, there's no doubt these numbers show that it answers a lot of questions regarding fundraising, at least. I don't know what we've actually been seeing since Beto O'Rourke has been on the campaign trail. It might take him a little while to sharpen up his message and his whole approach, but there are a lot of questions on whether he could raise money not running against Ted Cruz without all of the Democratic Party and all of the free world on his side. Now he's running against a lot of Democrats and he still brings in a haul like this. That's more than impressive. That's a pretty remarkable number.
His cultural resonance among Democrats has lingered since that race against Senator Cruz last year, and he remains a popular figure in the Democratic Party. So in some ways, it's not surprising he's done so well. He also presents a generational difference compared to someone like Senator Sanders, who's further to the left, is from a different generation. But this is very early in the nominating process, and while it's great for any candidate to have this kind of fundraising prowess early on, he has to prove himself, too, on policy and see if he can make a long-term case to these voters.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a different generation, Mika. I think Bernie Sanders is old enough. He could have gone to high school at the same time with Elvis Presley. That's a big generational difference. It
is. It is. Yamiche, what is this fundraising in terms of what we've seen in the past? What does it mean? Does this 6.1 plus mean he can go the distance and get the nomination? Does it translate that way?
I would agree that it's very early in the nominating process, but I think a lot of people have been wondering out loud, why does Beto get the Vanity Fair spread? Why does Beto get the reporters chasing after him? Why does he look like maybe he's a media darling? And there is maybe a little bit of that, of the media looking at him and being interested in him. But I think there's also now, with these fundraising numbers, people can back up the idea that people are interested in him and that people find his message and his charisma something that they want to donate and add to his campaign funds. I also think it's interesting because as he puts together his policy positions and as he starts to really define himself among this slate of Democratic candidates, we'll have to see whether or not this fundraising keeps up. I remember covering Bernie Sanders. One of the first signs that Bernie was going to be not the nominee was the fact that his fundraising started going down, and that told us the story of the fact that Bernie Sanders wasn't going to be able to sustain his fundraising.
So I don't know if our producer Dan Noor can get the 5 boxes up or show who we have. We have a great panel. And raise your hand, put everyone up. Someone tell me what is, because there's a lot of candidates running for president on the Democratic side, and some of them have a very clear message. I can name, especially a few of the women candidates. Who can tell me what is Beto's clear message? Who's got it for me? I want to know what it is.
I got it.
Mike. All right, Mike went first. Go, Mike.
He's young. He's electric. He has enormous appeal.
What is his?
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. That's what he's got right now. That's what he's got right now.
Yamiche.
I think unlike other candidates who are talking about climate change, his message is a vague one, which says we want to heal our nation and we want to get past this this time and period where we have President Trump really kind of getting into these small petty fights. We want to rise above this. That's, of course, a message, not a policy position, which is a big difference.
No. Okay. Bob Costa, you raised your hand or no?
Yes, I did. I've been listening to his speeches, Mika, over the last few days. And
Great.
his
What
message
is it?
It's clear his message is, I may not have the experience, I may not be the typical contender, but I'm the best candidate to present a generational choice to beat Donald Trump, to beat President Trump.
Again.
It's all
Why?
about beating
Okay,
Trump.
so, okay, all right, enough of this McLaughlin report
Let's
thing.
stop.
We would like to thank you, Mika, for not going,
I got his message. It's
Very
this.
good.
Look,
No,
you
no,
want to
no,
see
no.
it? I roll up my sleeves and the camera zooms in. And I look really busy. Like, I want to know what his message is. What's his platform? What's he going to do
Mike
for this
Barnicle,
country?
So
He's
what
careful
Mika's
on
getting
it.
at is the same thing she got at with Hillary Clinton for 2 years. It's not enough to say, I'm with her, or I forget what her other one was.
It's mine.
This is mine. It's my turn.
I'm born to run.
Yeah, Bezos is born to run. But I mean, the thing is, he doesn't have a message right now.
Right.
It's all
I
it's
want one.
all goop. But I will say this. One thing that people running Beto's campaign know, and they're all Obama's people, because in December Obama decided that this was going to be his candidate, and he's thrown everything he has at Beto. For God's God help me, I
hope he gets
don't
a
understand
message.
why. He doesn't have a message, though. But Mike, I will say this, though, about that much money. The thing that I was told at the beginning of my first campaign is, yeah, you want the $1,000, you want the $2,000, but somebody gives you $25, that person
big.
will give you $25 throughout the campaign, and they will be talking about you every day because they are personally invested in you. You look at all these small donors that gave to Beto, they're not going anywhere.
No,
That is an army. That is a political army for him that he can use through Iowa and New Hampshire and California and South Carolina and the early states.
Joe, we all know that this is basically the second inning of this presidential campaign. It's going to go on for quite some time. But the 25,
I would suggest the first, but go ahead.
Okay, the $25 contributors, they are not only going to give you the $25 now, they're going to be repeat contributors. Those are the odds.
Yes, they are.
And they're going to give you their vote at the end. The question is going to be for all of these candidates, for Beto O'Rourke and all of the other, everybody in the field, it's going to be, do you understand how Trump has changed the presidency and perhaps has altered the nation to such an extent that can we rid ourselves of this infection? What are you going to do about it, candidate A, B, C, D? What are you going to do about it?
Yep. And Evan Thomas, things have changed so much. It used to be in the Ice Age back in 2008, the Ice Age back in 2012, the political Ice Age, that the person that could get the most donors, the most bundlers, you could say 3 years ahead of time, that person's going to win. You could predict. You could see George W. Bush and Al Gore coming. You could see John Kerry and George Bush coming. You could see McCain coming. Obama obviously broke the mold, but he raised a ton of money. But here, this is a new Democratic Party, and these small donations that Beto got his first day, that's the ticket to ride in 2020, isn't it, for Democrats?
Well, we live in a totally different age. Social media has changed everything. The way word gets out has changed everything. The New York Times doesn't run the show anymore, and the big donors don't run the show anymore. It's just a whole new ballgame. Just the sheer number involved is just new. We got to get used to it.
Can I just make one other point, Joe? It seems to me that the candidate on the Democratic side who's talked most about policy is Elizabeth Warren, and that has not catapulted her into the lead. So whether it's the first or second inning, there's probably a case for a pace here, for rhythm, to emphasize personality. There's time to fill in some of the policy details later, but Donald Trump's a pretty good example that you can get a long way towards the Oval Office running on the basis of a kind of attitude, personality, and the rest without having 26 position papers.
Well, and Mika, we had quite a few debates on this show in 2008 when I would say that Barack Obama was marketed like a bag of potato chips. hope and change and the cool posters, and always the question, what really did he stand for? He stood for hope and change. So maybe Beto is a good match for Barack Obama, and maybe that's why Barack Obama's thrown everything that he has at supporting Beto, which of course leaves open the question of Joe Biden. Why exactly did he not send all of his people to go help Joe Biden?
That is a great question, and you have to wonder what's going on there, because they're really good friends, let alone the fact that Joe Biden,
good of friends, obviously,
one could argue, has more experience than anybody on the Democratic side so far, in foreign policy, in making policy.
So can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I find that to be, that's rough.
Yeah. So Mike Barnicle, Barack Obama obviously decided not to support his vice president and decided to throw everything he had at Beto O'Rourke, sending Plouffe and other people there and to help him out. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.